Welcome to The Good Ride. I'm James Beastie, and I'm just being me in a world that isn't, next to a lot of snowboard gear. And today I'm reviewing the Burton Genesis Step-On EST, a binding that only works with Burton EST channel system bindings and will often lead you to a second purchase of bindings when you decide you need a board outside of the Burton channel EST system. But great shock absorption, better adjustability than the Genesis Reflex and Atlas Step-Ons. And of course you get these because they're easy on and off, but it also has an amazing flex underfoot response and feel for a binding that is not that stiff or generally that responsive when it's a strap-in binding. So it's a very unique, very interesting binding that could work for some if they're okay with buying another binding for the rest of the boards out there in their quiver. I only put one day on these with the Burton Grillmaster, a board I know and like, in a 160. You can see my take on the 160 versus the 155 in the initial review on Patreon. I wrote it with the Burton Ion Step-On. Then after spending a morning on these, then I took one more run with the Genesis Reflex and the Atlas Step-On, then finished the day with my Nitro Team TLS and Union Force to see what it feels like with normal boots and bindings on in comparison. And this is an honest, objective review from an average rider's perspective, and I can do this because of Blauer Board Shop. Like I say in every review, they've been selling to snowboarders longer than most resorts have been allowing snowboarders on the hill. They have a large online presence, and they do everything they can to compete against the bigger shops out there. If you want to support objective content that you see here on The Good Ride, buy through our links to Blauer Board Shop. It greatly helps both of us. So when it comes to weight, these are 1 pound, 10 ounces. You compare that to the Genesis Reflex Step-On, these are 1 pound, 14 ounces. And the Union Atlas Step-On are 1 pound, 15 ounces. So these are by far the lightest out there, even with a heavier boot at 2 pounds, 9 ounces. You get a very light setup, but let's say you pair it with the Burton Wave Range X Pro at 2 pounds, 6 ounces, or the Burton Photon Step-On at 2 pounds, 3 ounces, you get a pretty light setup. This is in the realm of really good split board bindings. That's how light they are, but they don't feel light when you're riding. They don't have that ultra light, ultra chattery feel either. So it's pretty cool. In terms of Highback Flex, you have a really easy twist and a little give, and you have this hammock here that really makes it feel like a smooth ride. It's very similar to the Reflex version. There's a little more give, but a little less twist with these. This feels like it conformed a little better to my boot, and I thought I wouldn't feel it being connected right here, but I was. Then in comparison to the Atlas Step-On, it has a little stiffer flex, but it's still got a lot of twist and a lot of give, which is good because it's not easy to rotate any of these high backs, so you have to rely on the twist. One thing that's cool is this has a really normal forward lean adjuster. You just twist this and it goes up or down according to the twist, and that's a hell of a lot better than playing around with the screws in here. And with the Atlas Step-On, you have to unscrew this and put in another piece if you want more forward lean. I really think that's a bad setup and one of the biggest weaknesses of the Atlas. Now, in terms of adjustability, because it's EST, you can get any stance angle, you can get any stance width you want because you're in the channel system, and it's a much better binding for those who like adjustability. But again, you're stuck with Burton. and a few other brands that have some channel system technology as well. But you're really limited in your choices with boards you can choose with these, and that's the biggest deal breaker for me. There are some people that only buy Burton, and for those of you people who do that, you're missing out on a complete life. But if that's all you're into, this is the binding you want to get. The Reflex has no stance width adjustability with non-EST boards, but at least it works with EST2. And the Atlas Step-On, you can get aftermarket discs like I did here, so you can turn them sideways and actually get stance width adjustability, but it only works because I'm a size 9 and I fit very close to centered in this binding. But the rest of the adjustability is really limited, and that's a huge problem I see with Step-On from my perspective, who really likes to dial out their stance width and dial out their boot to the binding so you get a much better feel on snow. But some don't care and love that plug and play. Now, when it comes to Flex Underfoot, I can even bend this. You can see here, it has such a cool feel. This is all just soft EVA foam with a little plastic connecting here, but it feels really uniform in the footbed here. I don't feel any additional pressure points. It feels really smooth across the surface, and it just has amazing, truly amazing flex underfoot. The Burton Grillmaster 160 is a lot stiffer than the 155 I tried, and it was much more challenging for me to butter with Nitro Team TLS and my Union Force. It was almost impossible. It was a lot of work. With the Genesis and the Atlas, I could butter pretty well. It was a huge step up from there. The Genesis had a little more flex underfoot than the Atlas, but it was really close. And both of these have an easy bend in the middle. That's hard to show, but I can feel this flexing, especially in the gas pedal right there. The Genesis Reflex is a little easier throughout the binding, but overall, both of these allowed me to butter a lot easier, but these were by far the easiest. It really makes a board feel softer underfoot, which I think a lot of people will like, but some might not. And being so flexy underfoot, I thought there wouldn't be a lot of shock absorption and dampness, but man, this is such a cush, damp, shock absorbent ride, especially for being so light. Yes, the board flexes easier underfoot, so it did make the board feel a little more chattery than my Union Force and Nitro Team because it stiffens up the flex underfoot with that setup. So if you like going fast and you like speed and you want the board to not feel as soft and flexy, that might be a better option for you, or going to the Atlas or the Genesis in regular step-on that works with any kind of board. That might be a better solution, but I think most will be more than okay with this because it's still a very damp, very shock absorbent ride. And when it comes to turn initiation and response, this does a great job. Usually EST and Reflex, I feel, are dependent on the board. The stiffer the board gets, the harder it is to get the board to twist and engage a turn. But if you get like a medium response board that works with a binding that will allow it to flex more naturally, you'll find it's more responsive, but it's varied result-wise board to board. But when you're connected to this Highback here, like you are in the EST, it just powers the board edge to edge so much faster than you would think it would from the soft Highback, this softer flexing construction. It's really powerful, really good response, and it's a little more smooth than the Atlas and the Genesis Reflex, especially when paired with something like the Burton Ion, which is very responsive. I kept the top loose almost, and it was still just turning the Grillmaster, a board that's a little bit wide for me and a little too stiff for me for my weight. It turned it like it was made for me. So with Step-On and some of their more responsive Step-On boots, you can size up and turn a board like it's a size smaller, no problem. And one thing to mention with carving, if you're somebody into carving, these bindings increase the footprint of your boot because you have to connect to this back here. They're so much thicker than regular bindings that basically just have a heel loop here. Like in comparison to regular bindings, you can see how much thicker that back end is. but you can see they really tried to minimize it with the EST over the reflex, and they put it up as high as they could and tried to eliminate as much drag on this side. And it seems to be a little less than the Atlas, but it's close. But a lot of my friends who carve really, really hard don't like step-on for that reason. And when it comes to support and straps, you have none. You're basically connected to the high back and these 2 points here. And then it really depends on the boot to provide the ankle support that you might need in uneven snow. I found that boots without support in this region fold a little easier and feel a little weird, but I've never felt too much like my ankles exposed like it is when I'm riding bindings with really small ankle straps with normal boots like my really good buddies here, the Nitro Team TLS. So overall, these are amazing bindings. I really did enjoy the feel underfoot. Here's the thing though, I can only use these with Burton, so that really sucks. I can't tell you how many people that have EST bindings that bought them years ago thinking they only want Burton and now want another board outside of Burton's line, because Burton makes some great boards, but they're not the end-all be-all. There are a lot of other brands that have boards that might appeal to you much better than the Burton line, and now they have to buy new bindings. So as much as these are wonderful bindings, it's really hard to recommend it because then you're stuck with Burton. It's your choice though, and it is an amazing binding. So there you have it.
What's up, everybody? Davey Boy here. As you can see, I am talking Burton step-ons, specifically the Burton Genesis EST step-on. And this is going to be from a big guy's perspective. I'm 6'3.5", 245 pounds, and I rode these bindings with a size 12 Burton Wave Range X step-on boot. This is my first time getting on a pair of step-ons, and just right off the bat, the main reason why bigger guys probably listening to the end of the review from my perspective is the ease of access. Not having to fight your stomach, reaching down to your toes. You got a big belly, you got a sore back, probably got both. If you got one, you probably got the other. Stepping into these, amazing. I honestly, the first time I stepped into it, I kind of just started laughing like a little kid. Like, what is that? Oh, I kind of love them. It was great. It's a very smooth transition getting into the binding. However, getting out of the binding is a little bit of a skill that I'm not that good at. I used to be able to just roll up into the line, slide my way up to the gate, and just pop both my straps off and lift my foot out while sliding and kind of just one foot. If you've been snowboarding for a long time, it's a pretty simple system as long as the ratchet's not catching on your binding strap. With these though, you gotta pull this lever up. For me, I felt like I had to keep it held while I was trying to get my foot out. The method I had to do is heel first. I'm pretty sure that's what the directions will tell you to do. But being a heavier guy, you have to come to a complete stop. It's not the easiest to balance. That being said, that's probably user error too. So just take that with a grain of salt. There is a little bit of technique that comes with getting in and out of these bindings, and having to reach all the way down and grab that clip at the heel. It is easier than reaching all the way up to unstrap a toe binding. It's a new feeling that takes a little bit of time to get used to fully and adjust your technique with how the heel of your boots are completely locked into these. There's not any heel lift. Normal snowboard bindings, you get a little bit of heel lift, and for being a taller, heavier guy like myself, it actually forced a better technique. On my normal bindings, I can kind of lay my weight over my toe side edge and bank a pretty deep carve without necessarily having like the most aligned technique. But with the lack of heel lift, it felt like these were forcing a better technique. In order to get it on edge while carving, I really had to like get my weight over the edge of the snowboard and work the board onto the edge more. I didn't have that little bit of extra cheater lean from the heel lift on a normal pair of bindings. So that's good or bad. I actually liked that. I felt like these were making me a better snowboarder, not having any type of cheat on the carve. And I took these to the park. They feel really good, super locked in and responsive. Like, it's kind of trippy how you grow up skateboarding and you get on a snowboard, you're like, wow, my feet are attached to the board. And then just going from snowboarding to this, it's like almost a similar transition where you're like, whoa, my feet are even more attached to the board. Like, it feels more like one piece of equipment when it's fully engaged than even a traditional boot and binding do. So that's pretty cool. Like I said, takes a little bit of time to get used to it. These things are very responsive. They're a little twitchy. For myself, they almost felt a little too locked in and a little too responsive. I like that little bit of heel lift. But I don't know. I think with time, I could definitely really get used to these, and then I would get back on my normal bindings, and I think those would feel weird, and I wouldn't like them. So a lot of it's preference, but overall, these bindings are responsive. They're easy to get into. With a little bit of technique and practice, they're easy to get out of. They're responsive. They charge pretty hard, and my only thing is that they're almost too responsive.